Alrighty, we are live at the Rizvi Pod Zoomcast thing. Today we are interviewing my parents, Patricia and Farhan Rizvi.
Also my parents,
And
Patricia and Farhan Rizvi.
Also Inaya's
Not my
not
parents.
parents. Yeah.
My not parents. My
Cool,
my not,
alright.
Not parents.
Well, I'm going to bring them on board here.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. Oh, that's great.
Oh no.
Yes.
Look at the eyebrow. Sorry.
The rock is cooking.
Let's see if they're gonna set up their video.
Alright, yeah, we need their video on.
What?
Not on.
Our video's not on?
No, it's
Video
just the
is
picture
not
of
on.
Jedi Dad.
It's Mace Windu, played by Keegan Michael Key.
No happy videos.
Whoa.
What the hell?
Oh no.
I don't even know how you did that. That's great.
Oh.
That's what I figured. It's Mom.
Hello.
Yep.
It's the right brain.
Oh
Oh,
Come on, none of
no!
that.
Oh
look at that.
That one's
What? That
awful.
looks normal.
Yeah, that didn't look any different.
no! No, there we go.
Okay, how's it going, guys?
Uh-oh.
Hi.
Welcome to our first
Hello.
professional podcast where we all have matching
Oops,
backgrounds.
I'm wrong.
Mhm.
Mhm.
How are you guys doing?
Good.
Good?
Yeah.
So as we said, we asked that you brought notebooks. You brought notebooks, right? Because this first
No,
part, we're
Mom
gonna kick
didn't
it off
say
with.
anything about notebooks,
I didn't see.
Bruh.
but I can get notebooks very quickly.
We need 5-paragraph essays from both of you.
Oh yeah, we're not doing that. I'll be here till tomorrow doing it.
That's because you overthink everything, Mom.
Yep.
Like it to be about compare and contrast of the 2 books you've most recently read.
Read.
Go.
Who reads?
Okay, so we figured we'd start in a way that would kind of get everyone a little bit more relaxed. We're going to ask you guys to give one-word summaries for everyone involved in this interview, including yourselves. So you're going to have to give one-word summaries for me, Inaya, Nasim, Dad, and Mom from your perspective.
One word summaries.
Each individually, like first Trish will go and then I'll go.
Exactly.
Okay, go ahead.
Me first. I think you should go first. So I
Okay.
can think for a
This is
second.
good.
All right. Do I just say them and you guys have to guess who's who?
No, so you say them and you tell us who's it for.
We'll get to game portion at the end.
One word summaries.
Okay.
What does that mean?
Colorful. For Jordan, since he's adding lots of all the color commentary and he's got the colorful hair and he's wearing a colorful hat. Inaya, front runner. She knows why.
Does she?
Thanks.
Nasim. We'll say thespian because this is her thing, and then we'll say for Mom we will say Nelly because she's a nervous Nelly about all this.
All right,
then
Mom, your turn.
Oh, okay.
Dad doesn't
Oh yeah,
his-
do one for yourself too.
Yeah, yourself.
You said one word, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Fish.
Why?
Because he's a fish out of water.
Is that what that?
Yeah.
I caught on. I figured it out.
Why? Oh, a fish out of water, as in this scenario. Oh, okay.
I'm trying to think of like things for this. I don't like it. I feel really. I'm nervous about it.
That's why we're doing icebreakers now, so that when we get to the
Yeah.
hard-hitting questions, you're a little bit more relaxed.
It's just like
Right here.
FaceTiming.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're gonna get real deep into the
Let's
shit.
see.
So maybe I shouldn't curse. Family's gonna see this.
Oh,
is this
no.
gonna air live somewhere?
We're
Yeah.
we're live right now in Japan.
Okay. So let's see. I don't know why Inaya you said front runner. That's not even one word.
Yeah, maybe you should explain
Oh,
that.
she
for
had a
people who
heavy
don't-
eye
One
roll.
word. Front runner combined. You front runner.
Inaya knows exactly why I tell him.
Explain. Explain,
Okay,
Inaya. Explain.
For the rowers, Yes, I clear out my thingy, my little screen, but I only don't apparently if I win that day,
Yeah.
so everybody can see I'm running around.
Well, I was gonna say, so Inaya is a competitor because if she knows where I'm at, she's always gonna beat me, or yeah, she'll always try to beat me. So I have to try to clear my screen sometimes to prevent that. If she doesn't know how far I've gone, she doesn't.
She's a front
she's a
runner because
competitor.
she doesn't want to express confidence outwardly. She wants to
Oh God.
compete. But if she thinks she's gonna win, then she's very like she doesn't post anything on splat points if she gets under. But if she has a high number of splat points, she posts. If she gets on the rower and she thinks she's gonna win, she like is open with her results. So she's a front runner. And I just said she should be more confident in setting the bar. She doesn't like to.
So what you're saying is she's sus? She only hides it. She hides all the losses.
What? Oh, you're frozen.
Are
I'm
we
a sore
frozen?
loser.
No, I don't think they're
Okay.
frozen.
No, you're not. I thought you were for a second, but you're fine.
I'd say
Okay.
I call Inaya competitor, and then
Why?
that's why I said like she's very competitive. If she knows like
Albert.
what there is the
No.
spot to beat, she's always gonna try to beat it. That's what I say. Competitor.
Oh. At least it puts it in a more positive light.
But it's a good thing because it's like you're to me you're
I'm saying a good thing too. I'm telling her to get out of front running because she should feel comfortable if she's to set the bar too.
Okay. And what
yes,
about me
thank you.
and Nasim?
okay. So let's see. I had something for Nasim right.
You know, I was worried about us not getting a full hour, but I
no.
think Mom's gonna give it to us for free.
Oh yeah.
I am gonna give it to you because I'm still working on things. So Jordan, I was like trying to think of how so I'm gonna compare him. I would say this is dad too, so it's really hard, but I would say like kind of Jedi. I don't know if it's Jedi.
Wow.
Like Jordan's in there, and like especially like right now with all of our scary cherry night. That guy doesn't have to win anything. He's in there getting everybody else to put his movies on. So he's mind tricking
less
everybody.
Jedi and more Machiavelli.
I don't know.
The Jedi mind trick. Mom's saying he's doing Jedi mind tricks. This is the movie.
She's
we're
watched me
looking
play
for.
Among Us.
So I'm just saying, like he is. So that's what I was gonna say for him.
So you're saying me and Dad have mind control?
He's an influencer. He's getting people to do what he wants. Influencer.
Okay.
What or
Jedi. I prefer Jedi.
Jedi.
Nasim, I am gonna say this is a hard one for me because I think I have a lot of things for her.
You just have to have the one.
Loser. That's a good one.
I think she's the oh gosh, I'm trying. I have like
for all time.
I know.
Mom, this is supposed to be
Like-
quick. This is
This
supposed
is
to be
gonna go on
icebreaker
my-
level. If this is
I
if we're
want
already
this on my headstone, so take it seriously.
loser would be a
Very
good one.
serious. No, I'm just like she's the type I can't think of a one word thing, but like
One word.
she just brings happiness.
One word.
She's joyful or something.
Joyful is a
she's
good one.
joy. She's joy from
You're actually putting into this compared to Front you. It's great.
because she's spreads joy wherever she goes. To
That's
me,
great. And what about
she's got a
yourself,
Good attitude.
Nelly?
yeah. And
Nelly
Dad, I would say
Furtado.
he is kind of like the Yoda. He's really smart and he's very intelligent. And he just gets like
He's left brain.
And he's bald.
he gets the shit that he wants done.
Even
Yeah.
Yoda had a few hairs though.
Yeah.
Did it? Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
he got a few little white stragglies.
That's true.
Yeah, just kidding.
All right. Yeah, so we have would you guys just want to jump into the questions? Oh, I have a question. What do you guys think of our super professional backgrounds?
It's all the same, right?
Well,
Yep.
yeah.
No. Are you seeing
We're
the same
matching.
thing?
We're the interviewers.
Where are you? Where are you? Is that
Leavenworth.
Poo Poo Point?
That's the woods. It's actually
That's in the
Brazil.
woods.
It's actually Brazil.
It's very nice.
Thank you. So for question number 1, we wanted to dive into your guys' kind of basic upbringing. So do you guys want to give us like a summary of your guys, how you guys were brought up, from childhood until when, we'll say 18, when you guys got married. We'll say summarize that with any important points that you think would summarize your upbringing. And you guys take turns.
Or as Dad would have us do, like the 5 most important events that
I don't know.
defined your.
I wouldn't say bullet points, but a summarization for sure.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go?
I'll let you go first and think about it for a minute.
All right. I'll to summarize. There's phases. The first phase is probably the most stable. It's the phase in Pakistan. So for the first 5 years, not that I remember a ton of it, but there was a lot of stability. We lived in different places in Pakistan for the beginning years, surrounded by lots of family, mostly on my mom's side, but on my dad's side as well. So surrounded in Pakistan. The second phase was coming to the States, and that was Albuquerque for 3 years. And that was the interesting experience of going from being surrounded by family, and then transitioning into something that was very isolating, because we went from a place that we were very familiar to not familiar. We were very different. Albuquerque didn't have a lot of Pakistanis or Indians or Desis at that time. It was the 70s, and we didn't speak any English whatsoever. So we were put into a separate classroom to try to catch up with English. Then when we were put in with the rest of the class, we were still learning. One of the reasons that I'm more quiet is because in that moment, you're processing differently. So it was in that 3 years that my thinking changed from Urdu to English. But I used to think in Urdu when I first arrived, and then I started to change and think in English. The second portion was New York, and that was only for the third portion. That was New York, and that was a couple of years of going to New York and being in a place that was much more diverse than Albuquerque when we were there, and then transitioning in that place and just seeing the amount of diversity that existed there, but also feeling an ongoing sense of isolation because it was very hard to get around in New York. It was very, very different. The schools were very different, and so there was that was just from an experience perspective. Drastically different than Albuquerque or Pakistan. And then after New York, we were back in Albuquerque, and those were sort of the first part. There's 2 phases that even happened within the second Albuquerque stint. One was Ummi and then her declining health, and then having her pass, and then post Ummi's passing. And the years before Ummi passing, Albuquerque was fine. I didn't even know we were poor, but we were poor. But we never had a feeling like we were poor. We were looked after well, lots of parental influence and guidance and support. And then after Ummi passed, it was total Lord of the Flies. And Abu was like not engaged very much. We were definitely kind of on our own figuring things out. And then the final phase that I'll talk about from an upbringing perspective, because I met your mom in high school. So then after that, it was growing up very, very quickly, and then growing up with your mom.
Great.
So who's gonna see this?
Well, we're posting it to our YouTube channel that we have not named or came up with an idea for yet. But me, Nasim, and Inaya decided to do this on one of our other Zoom calls, because we kind of Zoomed and we would watch horror movies and stuff like that, and then we were up at like 10:30 or something, and we were all talking about how cool it'd be to put our family on a little bit more of a display, because I think we're all very proud of our family members, and we think we're much more interesting than we get credit for, and that not a lot of people know about us, and we think we could be famous. So this is our...
Besides, we might be related to those Rizvi air.
Yeah.
Okay,
true.
so
Yeah.
I looked that up.
And we
That was
need him
actually
to
one
find
guy.
us.
It was one guy, and he's in charge of an investment firm. But
Yeah.
I did Google him, and he looks nothing like us, unfortunately, other than
We're
the
gonna
fact that
need
he's a little brown.
Yeah, we're gonna need Dad to do a 23andMe and figure this out.
Yeah.
See how we're connected.
Yeah,
He's not cooperative with this 23andMe type of thing, either. So, but
Basic. Well, they're
What?
collecting
Dad
your DNA.
doesn't want to
Mom.
know arbitrary information about where the people he's never met in his hereditary history have been.
This is basically
what a
mine, Anaya's, and Nasim's way of cashing in on you guys while you're still alive.
that's a good idea, just in case.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. This is our get rich quick YouTube channel
be good.
scheme.
Just expect
for you to stop borrowing money from us. We will support.
Exactly. This is how it's gonna happen.
I
All right, all right.
anticipate it will be the usual suspects like Qasim and maybe Damon and,
Yeah.
and
Not a lot of people are
people-
gonna see it, but I feel like this is gonna be a
Mhm.
really fun thing for us to all have and look
Yeah.
back on when we're in
And
the
then watch
future
later.
and we have
Mhm.
this cool interview of us just kind of getting to know you guys a little bit more, because I know we've talked a lot, but I still feel like there's so much more, not only stuff we can know about you, but advice that you could supply to us that maybe we aren't comfortable going to you guys directly for whatever reason, but in this way is kind of a window for us to get to know your guys' life and experiences, and any advice that we can get that will help us later in life. It could be gained via you guys, via other people we interview, because we're talking about doing other family members too. It'd be really cool to
Yeah.
get Haas and Fizza and Qasim and Suzanne and stuff like that. And then obviously if we want to keep doing it, which I think we've all had a really good time so far because we've gotten together and written a bunch of interview questions and stuff, and kind of
Yeah.
it's been really fun. And so doing this for an extended amount of time wouldn't be necessarily for an audience, but more for us, and a thing that we can all kind of watch later in life. It's sort of our podcast of sorts. I hate that
Yeah.
term nowadays, but we're not sure what to call it, so it's a podcast right now.
Nice.
But Mom, this is gonna be your turn to bring up your upbringing. I have to go walk over to the other side of the room and do something, but I'll be right back. I have my headphones
What?
on, so go ahead and start, and I'll be right back.
All right.
Okay.
So, I grew up with a big family. I had a lot of brothers and sisters, but by the time I really can remember stuff, the oldest three were no longer really living with us. So I grew up in Westgate, which is in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and our house was really modest. We were pretty poor. So we ate beans a lot. We ate macaroni. One of my favorite things was that macaroni with tomato sauce and cheddar cheese and stuff. It was just a really cheap meal, but that's what we had. And so we did that. That was pretty normal. My mom was a single mother at that point, and she had 8 kids at that point. And then she met Stanley's dad, and I don't know how long they dated because I was really young when they got married and everything, but we moved to another house it was still on the west side, but we moved in with my stepdad, Hank, and Stanley came along. So there were the 9 of us, but still only at that time probably 5 of us lived in the house with them. And things were better at that, like financially we were in a different spot and all of those things. The first day we moved into that house, I've told you guys this before, it was just a really crazy thing because we had never eaten out. We didn't do that before that. So my stepdad bought, I think it was Domino's pizza, I'm pretty sure. And then we had ice cream and soda, and we just had all this stuff, and we were running around like a bunch of crazy people trying to clean our rooms and stuff like that. And then after that, like the norm was more, we ate out a lot more. We did a lot of those things. We would go to the grocery store and we'd all pick, like all 5 kids would pick their own cereal and stuff like that. It was a pretty crazy thing. But then once I hit like 8th grade, my mom and stepdad divorced. So we moved back to Westgate, same area we came from. We went back and lived in a really old house. My mom was very much the type of person that, and she still is, even at almost 80 years old, she just never wanted to live in an apartment or anything like that. She always wanted to own her own house. So even if it was like beat up and we had to do work to it and all of that stuff, she just wanted that. So the house we moved into there had 70s wallpaper all over it when we were moving in. So we had to take all the wallpaper down. I was in 8th grade, so I was the only one that could stay home and wait for the power company to come and turn on our power. So I had to stay home from school in 8th grade and let the power company people come and
Oh my God.
do that. And so she left me paint, and we had no power or anything, so I couldn't watch TV. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have any of that. So I literally painted, like I painted the whole living room, and I don't know if I did anything else. I can't even remember, but I did
Oh
paint.
my.
And that was all like my 8th grade year. And then just, because of our financial situation and stuff like that, I started working when I was really young. So at 15, I started working, and my first job was like in the police department.
What?
There was a thing called, what was that stupid thing? Can't remember. I thought I had it on the tip of my tongue, but Work Unlimited or something like that. And they would put people who were in like a poorer income level, they would help place you with jobs, even though you were young. So like the summer of my 8th grade year, I worked at the police department in the alarms ordinance area. And then my next job was Peter Piper Pizza, where I met your dad. And so pretty much a lot of my growing up, we were taught to be really independent. So I don't really remember a lot of like, I mean, obviously I had to rely on my mom somewhat. Church was heavily pushed upon us, I guess. Like we went a lot to church. And then I met your dad, and we started dating, and got pretty serious with each other, and spent a lot of our time together. And then, like, as he said, we kind of grew up and had to mature really fast with each other. We moved out of the house. I was 17, maybe 18, because 18 when we moved out, though.
17 was before you graduated.
Yeah, but we married at 17, and then we stayed with my mom for we married the month before I turned 18.
Oh, yeah.
So we moved out at 18, and Dad worked at a fast food restaurant, and I went to school. We had one car, so we moved into an apartment complex right across the street from the high school, so I could walk to school, and then Dad could go to work. So that's every day I'd walk to school, and then walk home for lunch, and then walk back. And that was our routine for a long time. But yeah, that was kind of the childhood and into our married life.
Anaya, can you imagine walking to school after saying bye to your husband?
Oh no, that's so weird. I was
See you
literally
later,
just talking
honey.
about that. That's
Gotta
so
go
weird.
to my senior year.
Oh my god, yeah.
Well, there were definitely a lot of people who were like, oh, because I didn't really share that I was married, but I had a wedding ring. So I remember like my chemistry teacher was like,
You're married?
is that what I think it is? And she's like, are you married? And then I was like, yeah, it was a very weird thing. But anytime anybody caught wind of it or found out, they were just like, oh my God,
That's so
She must be from a
Yeah.
cult.
Would
One of those cults where they marry early.
would
Yeah.
you have let any of your kids marry at 17?
It's a hard thing because no, I wouldn't have wanted you guys to, but I also think like there were a lot of I like to say extenuating circumstances. There were things like my upbringing was very different than I think yours was. So
For sure.
I think I wouldn't have wanted you to. I mean, I feel really blessed that Dad and I have been able to make it last for all this time and everything like that, and we still really love each other, and probably more than we did back then, but it's not easy. And so I wouldn't have wanted any of you guys to do that, especially because I was just like, you do have to grow up really fast, right? Like Dad, poor thing, he had to grow up. I mean, even he had a lot of responsibility on his shoulders right away, because within our first year of marriage, we had the same. So it's a lot of responsibility. How about you? Would you have let any of them?
Yeah, I think I've always been of the mindset that that yeah, I would, because we did. So it's certainly something that can work. Like to Mom's point, it would have been something that we would have hopefully talked about and figured out what the best path was. I wouldn't want anybody to do that, because it's not the easiest path. But I also think that it's important to go figure out your path, and then ultimately it's just right, you talk and you figure out what's next, and if you're doing things for the right reason, then yeah, you go for it.
can hear that conversation now, starting with the table. You're right here. Are you sure you want to start this right here when you have all this table ahead of you?
Yeah. Yeah. I would have definitely been a little bit more in that way, only because I'm like, man, not that I would have done anything any differently than we did, because I'm really happy with the way everything turned out, and I wouldn't trade any of you guys for anything. So for me, it's
Not
I
even
wouldn't have
Nasim?
done it differently. Well, maybe no. I'm just kidding.
Oh.
Maybe Nasim. She was the starter. Poor thing. She probably would have wanted to be a little later in, just so that she wasn't the practice child
Well,
for.
Oh, the guinea pig.
We'll get into that. But let's keep it moving.
She was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
We were gonna ask what it was like being married so young as well. I feel like we kind of touched on
Yeah,
that,
I
so
think
we
I
can just
think
kind of move
we
forward.
can just skip
Yeah.
that one. Go ahead, Inaya.
Well, we were just gonna say, like, what were your initial goals, like, when you got married, and like, did you anticipate your marriage to last like this long?
I don't know that, like, both of us, and obviously I can't speak for both of us, but at least from my perspective, all the conversations we had, both of us went into this as sort of like we weren't doing it for any other reason other than wanting to be together. My Abazur, my grandfather, we call him Abazur, but he used to visit us, and he used to visit both Iffy and I, and we used to love it when he visited. Usually, when he visited, he brought us Legos, and then he would take us out, and we would go eat. He'd take us to the movies, stuff like that. But Abazur loved taking us to buffets, and when we were kids, growing up poor, not realizing we were poor, all we ever ate was food that my mom cooked, and I thought it was because that's all she would let us eat, and it wasn't because like we couldn't afford it. But that was when he would take us to the buffets. I thought it was the greatest food in the world, and it's like I thought it was super fancy. It was literally just a normal buffet, but for me as a kid, I was like, this is the most amazing thing in the world. And so we would go, and both Iffy and I would all eat. And so one year when he came, I was 10 years old, and it's funny because he repeated that story to me a few times, so I remember it. And I don't know why he said it, but at 10, he asked me. He said, "Are you going to date, or are you going to get married?" And I was like, "I think I'll get married." And he's like, "Are you going to get married young, or are you going to wait till later?" And I said, "I'm going to get married young." He said, "When are you going to get married?" And I said, "When I'm 18." And he said, "Are you going to marry Pakistani, or are you going to marry someone from America?" And I said, "I was going to marry someone from America."
Whoa.
And he, those things are pure chance. Like, you don't know what happens. But I remember that, and I remember the mindset going into this was you find someone you love, and then you stay with them, and that's the intention, and that's what you work at, and so that's what you go do. So there was never, going into it, there was never this idea of we're going to do something different. And at least from my perspective, the goal was really simple when we got together. It was when we were married, we both had a desire, and I think what drew at least us together to some degree was there was a very strong desire to build a better home life than the one we were coming from. Abu didn't do a great job of creating a good home life. She had opportunities in the areas that she grew up, and so together we were like, hey, we want to do better. We think life can be better. And when we had Nasim, the goal was like, hey, we're going to do whatever it takes to create a happy home. And as long as we love each other, everything will be okay. We may never be rich. We may never be, we may never have a lot of things, but I think we can create a loving environment and be happy. And so that was at least our goal in the simplest way from as far as I can remember. I don't think that it's changed much.
That's so romantic.
Yeah,
Now
I
they're
don't-
providing
so
a
cute.
really happy home for some little mini Labradoodles.
Yes, it's you can come back. Although Dad's like, no, thank you. I would say I agree. I think when we decided to get married and all of that stuff, like, to be honest, I think I just was like, we're together and it's just gonna always be that way. So I didn't really think of like timing, I guess, necessarily. I didn't think of like, oh, 28 years later, here we're gonna be, or whatever. You know what I mean? I didn't really think of those things, but I just assumed we would be together and all of that. And so there were, you know, obviously some of my family members had some issues with drugs and alcohol and stuff like that. And so it could be really hard growing up with some of that. So I think that we both wanted to have a family of our own, and we always wanted to try to give you guys something, a little bit of a different life than what we may have experienced and stuff like that. But to me, you know, the goal, I think, before I met Dad was that, like, I always thought I was going to be a psychologist. Actually, before I met Dad, that was my original thing, because I was like, man, I can just help other people who've been through some things that maybe I have or whatever, like that. But then once we got married and we were together, then the goal was just to really make sure that we could be the best that we were, for like provide you guys with the best too, to be honest. I mean, I think that was always important. Like we were always like a united front pretty much. And we once we married, we were just like, we're together, you know what I mean? But then the goals were more around what we were going to do for our family and how we were going to provide for you guys, and maybe the things that we could do, opportunities we could give you that maybe we didn't have, and different things like that.
Yeah. So
Definitely.
as somebody who is in a committed relationship and everything, what guidance do you guys have? I don't know that I ever really like, not that I didn't pay attention to your relationship or anything, but at the same token, I think being a little bit older and things like that, now in a relationship that's, you know, progressing, I'm just curious what type of advice or guidance you have for people who are just starting out.
You know, I think one, there's lots of different aspects that you can pursue relationships with, and the most convenient path is emotionally. I think probably the worst path is intellectually, and I think the best path is intuition, and leading with your intuition, and actually leaning into relationships so you can balance emotion and intellectualism, and actually follow your intuition. Your intuition will be better for you than anything else. And I think the first thing you have to do is know yourself. And you have to know what are some of the things that you need to be happy. And I think you have to know how you can communicate those things. You have to know what things for you are flexible and what things for you are things that you know you can't be without, and whether those are attributes or whether those are things that you want from your partner. I think you go into everything being very, very open, and you can't do that unless you know yourself. So take the time to get to know yourself. Some of the best stuff I ever read was from Deepak Chopra. Deepak. I don't know why I'm having a hard time saying that name. Deepak Chopra.
I don't know either.
And,
It seems like it should be right up your alley.
Deepak Chopra.
Siddharth, Buddha. If you ever read anything from Buddha, some of the things he talks about is rather than avoiding emotion, like when you feel angry, lean into that anger. When you feel sad, lean into the sadness, and actually like allow yourself to sit in it. Allow yourself to, like, if you need to have a good cry, and just understand where some of those feelings are coming from. There's lots of different ways to do that, but I think if you know yourself and if you trust your intuition, then you can go into any relationship and you can be very open, and you can communicate very openly, and you can figure out like what's right and what's what things maybe won't work, and how do you not spend too many cycles of times like just sort of spinning. But I think you have to be able to figure out how you do that, and then your intuition will be the best guide, even knowing when you line up with someone. If you do things for other reasons, whatever those might be, those could be for family, those could be for expectations socially, those could be for lots of other things. At that point, you're no longer leveraging your intuition, and I think that's bad for relationships. Other than that, just knowing that sometimes things can change, sometimes anything can happen, but I think you just constantly have to know yourself. You constantly have to have very open lines of communication. It's the main reason why I can't watch or really enjoy lots of different things. Like Breaking Bad's a great example. Could never watch that show because it was built on a premise of some idiot that just couldn't talk to his partner and ever really express what he was going through. And I was like, I can't watch anything else that happens from here. The foundation is terrible for me, and I can't watch and enjoy any part of this show. But that's what I would say.
His wife was the worst in that show too, if we're being honest.
I was the whole time I was just like, well, I think I use only emotions and intuition. My intellectual aspects are limited in this. I'm like, I think that one of the things that you really have to do is like be ready to realize like that there's somebody else involved, and so like, you know, sometimes the things that you want or would do or need if you were on your own, you know, you can't do that as much once you have a partner, you know. So to me, taking the other person into consideration and just being willing to compromise. I mean, there's a lot of things that, you know, you get people who are from two different families with us, two different backgrounds, you know, ethnic backgrounds and stuff like that. There's a lot of upbringing that was similar, but there's a lot that's very different too, you know. And so to me, compromise and being ready to, we always used to say it's like take a bullet for the other person, because sometimes you have to do something that, you know, for them that maybe you wouldn't want to do, but you're doing it because you love this person and you're it's important for them and stuff like that. I think one of the things that, I mean, even knowing, like he's saying, even if you're upset and being able to share that, but there's times that I think even us being, if we get into fights or different things like that, there's times that we'll go, I don't know, a day or, you know, we'll go a long time without talking to each other because we just let it be and we're not ready to be friends yet, you know. I mean, and sometimes you have to do that. And I remember when we were first married, I thought like I was going to give him the boot one time. I was like, you're going to go sleep on the couch. And he's like, I'm not going anywhere. And he was like, you can go sleep on the couch. So then we both were like, no, neither one of us is leaving the bed. But then if we would make any contact, we'd be like, oh, you know. It was just that way. But and honestly, I think that was a really learning like experience for me, because even now every time we fight, we still, neither one of us leaves the bed. We won't touch each other. We still do that. But we won't leave. And so, you know, we've kind of like, we're both, this is our room and this is, you know, our space and stuff like that. But sometimes you have to just let yourself be upset for a little bit and things like that. And to me, I'm always like, I'm just not afraid to apologize when I know I'm wrong. Sometimes even when I know I'm right. I still want to end it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm less stubborn than your dad. I'll say that much. Like, I think I'm less stubborn.
Shots fired. Shots fired.
But if I have an issue, he changes it. He just doesn't always say that I was right or that he agrees or things, you know. He just makes the actual change, and that's important. And I think, you know, I know that about him, so I at least can see like, okay, he might not come back and say, oh yeah, that made sense or whatever, but he'll do something different, and that's important. But yeah, anyway, I think it's just compromise is the biggest thing to me, being able to just, I try to put him probably ahead of myself more often than I should, but just because he's important to me. So I want to have his needs and desires met, you know, more than my own.
Yeah,
sure.
I feel that. So I have a question. So Farhan, Chacha, you're Muslim, right? And then Chachma, you're Christian. So I'm just wondering, like, what's it like knowing that your spouse is going to hell?
I know. I'm sorry. It's so bad. It's so sad.
I'm just kidding. I'm just what's it like? Like,
He says that kind of thing. He says me 5 times a day, don't you?
Well, Dad gets 72 virgins.
He's waiting for that. That's what he's really working on. That's what prayers are really about, you know?
Yeah, no, but like seriously, like, what was it like coming from a different faith? Like what challenges did that have on your relationship and stuff?
I think the challenges on generically speaking on relationships are hard. I think for the two of us, it was
yeah, sorry, religion, in terms of religion.
Get that LaCroix brand out of here. We're not sponsored.
I'm just saying there's always generic challenges for
There you go.
everybody when there's religious differences. The thing I'm saying for us specifically, some of those same things existed, right? Like just having an understanding or whatever. But I think foundationally, it depends on what your belief system is. There's something really interesting. I don't remember the author that wrote it, but the author said there's two approaches to spirituality. One is you look for spirituality externally. That's religion. Then there's an approach to spirituality where you look for spirituality internally, and that doesn't mean it's not influenced by religion. It just means that that's you're looking inside. You're not looking outside for answers. You're looking inside for answers. If you whatever your belief system is, the fact is I believe that our belief system was more aligned than not. Our internal beliefs and our core values are the same. If you get hung up on what religion or whatever, I think the other thing that helped is I never had a core belief that anybody of a different faith was going to hell. In fact, there's different versions of it in every religion, but in Islam specifically, it talks about that one of the biggest sins is like, hey, nobody can judge anybody but God, and you don't know what God is going, whatever God's judgment is. So the idea is just being, go practice your faith the best way that you want to, and there's no way you can definitively start to like say who's going to go to heaven or hell. So I never had any concerns about somebody else that wasn't my faith going to heaven or hell, or being variances in that respect. And I also think that learning from everybody is a really important element. So spirituality for me comes internally. It's influenced externally by Islam. So after that, it wasn't about aligning on religion. It was about aligning on our internal beliefs. And that is a challenge that everybody faces, because how your spirituality influences you will influence your behaviors and how you act and how you view each other. And those things, aligning those internal values is way more important than being the same religion.
I agree. I think at first, honestly, I think my the way I was brought up in the religious, sort of some of the religion, the church that I was brought up in, and some of those things, there was a lot of like, to me, you believe because it's in the Bible, or we're teaching you, you just have faith and you don't really question it. It was kind of like that. And so I was a little bit, I think, scared at first about like, okay, having Nasim go to the mosque and do different things like that. I wasn't scared about where we were at with stuff or any of that. And I felt like I never really looked at it as like a negative thing that he was a different religion. To me, I was just like, okay, we both believe in God. We both have these core values and the things that we want, the way we want to live our lives and the way we want to raise our kids, and all of those things are the same. And so that part wasn't really a problem to me. I think as I got to know him more and more, and I always questioned it, actually, even as a kid. I was always like, okay, well, why would God send all these other religions to hell? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if God is really loving and everything that all of these religions teach, then why would he choose to send so many people? Because there's a lot of religions out there to hell, you know? I just never feel like there's one right thing. Personally, I think everybody's got to be accountable for their own, like, choices or relationship with God and how you choose to experience that. But to me, one of the things that particularly over the years that I started really feeling was like, I learned a lot from Dad about like just being more open and accepting of stuff like that too. You know what I mean? Because I was like, I've met so many good Muslim people that I was like, I just don't see them as, I don't see it as a negative religion. You know what I mean? So I think when you start to see that there's a lot more in common, and you realize like, hey, you know, we're all believing in God and what we have learned, a lot of us, or we sometimes make the choice to go do something different. But for us, I think it was good because he was pretty open mind, or he taught me a bit about being more accepting in that way, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's ever really been a problem for us navigating that. And I agree with him. Like, I think no matter who you are, even if you grow up in the same religion, there's still like internal values and spirituality that could be very different, you know. So we were aligned, I think, from the beginning
Sure.
with that. We just
Yeah.
had to, you know.
And that's awesome.
did that.
Yeah.
I think that we're all pretty lucky to be born in this century where people are not holding that to as high of a value as
Mhm.
maybe they used to, and being raised in a situation, especially with parents of different religions, and having this general sense of acceptance, regardless, has been really valuable for me, especially. I can't speak for Nasim or Caden, but I know that me growing up not really having a religion that I necessarily identified with, but still being able to experience kind of both, as well as, you know, do my own research on more of them, was so much more valuable than if you guys just told me I was this religion and that's what I practiced while I was under your roof. So that was awesome. I'm also realizing now that we'll probably have to make this a 2-part episode, Nasim and I, because we are
Yeah, I know.
46 minutes in and we are not even close to halfway done. So
Yeah.
I'll
Yep.
I think that in about 15 minutes or so we'll do an episode 1 closing, and then we'll do another episode 2 opening, but I won't stop the recording.
Do we
So
want to do one of the games in this session?
Yeah. No?
maybe
Yeah.
maybe the second session could be all of the more fun aspects of the
Okay.
interview.
Yeah. True.
I think that we should just keep drilling down, since all of these questions are more or less related
True.
to their backgrounds and stuff like that. We'll try and keep as much of it as we can into this first episode. But I also think that once we hit the hour, we'll just do a quick sign off at like 55 minutes or so. And then any editing or anything that I'll need to do, we'll drop it down to maybe 55 minutes total. And then we'll publish the second episode, kind of picking up exactly where we left off. So I also don't think there's that many people who are going to watch this, and the people who are going to watch this are probably going to watch both episodes, so they're not going to really have an issue with that. Our next our next question was Nasim an accident? And
That's a funny question.
no, it's definitely a joke question. You guys don't need to answer that. Just blink at if yes.
She was totally
hold on.
not.
It's been a consistent joke. Mom and I got married early, and we had a huge argument and debate about whether or not we were going to have a kid.
I really wanted you, Nasim.
She was ready to have a kid. We were living with her, with your nana at the time, and I was like, we got to go to school. We got to figure other stuff out. And so we debated several days and weeks worth of debates about
whether
are we going to have a baby now? Are we going to
or
try? Are we going to do whatever? We finally reached a point, and the thing that in one of our debates, your mom was like, whether we have a baby now or later, we don't have line of sight of when's going to be a good time. When exactly is going to be a good time? We don't know when it will be, but she was very emotionally bought into feeling like it was the right time. And at that point, I just said, okay, I think like it's fair. Like I can't tell you or predict. Like it wasn't like we were enrolled in school. It's not like we had a plan about getting out of school and getting a job. And we were young. The benefit of being young is you're full of optimism. And so we were like, yes, okay, you're right. We can do anything. And so then we were like, okay, let's do it. And then from that point on, we started trying. And I think, you know, the other thing about being young is that comes easily. So I think under a week, we were like, I think we're pregnant.
pregnant pretty quick with you once we agreed. It was just pretty,
so there was a result of a lot of dialogue and conversations, and people nobody around us thought it was a good idea, but it was completely intentional.
So you heard it here first.
But we didn't tell everybody either. Like,
Nobody thought I
like
was
I
a good
said-
idea.
No.
Well, I was just gonna say you were in an accident.
Just kidding.
Listen,
I'm just
I
kidding.
didn't sit back
didn't
and
talk
run
to
it by my
anybody
family
else
members. It was
when we-
us.
I'm talking, and the conversations came up when we were like, we're pregnant. And then they were like, oh my God, is it an accident? And that's when it was relayed, like, no, like, here's what happened. Like, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's when the conversations with everybody else happened. Not
We
before.
didn't ask people.
I'm
but it
just
was when we
kidding.
were pregnant.
No, we're just joking around. We figured Nasim wasn't. We know you guys well enough to where we assumed it was premeditated. Our next,
As are most things when dad is involved in the conversation.
our
This is what you want to do? Why do you want to do that? Why do we need
I
a
wrote
new
an
chandelier?
essay.
Why do we need
I'm sure you guys read all the books and did all the
An
research.
essay? Wait, really? Oh, I was about to be like,
No, she yelled and she cried a lot.
I did. I was like really sold on it.
Our
I was ready. You know, I really wanted all of you guys.
our
I want-
next question is which of your children would you consider the funniest and why is it me?
Oh God, I don't know. Go ahead.
I don't
I think it is.
I don't- I can't
I
give
don't think
one.
there is a funniest. I think the honest answer is every single one of you.
You're so
One,
smart.
I think all three of you have a good sense of humor. You all have different sensitivity points that with Caden and Nasim, I have a pretty good sense on how to push those buttons. Jordan's a little more aloof when it comes to that point. He doesn't show it as much, but I can tell when I've hit those points. But I try not to. So I think the sense of humor on your all three of you is very balanced. It shows up in different ways. I think all three of you are very witty, but I genuinely do not believe there is a funniest. I think if you were just in a room, I think it's actually pretty cool to see because now when we get together, especially for scary movie nights and stuff like that, if we're just in a room, then Nasim and Jordan are going to be the life of the party. Caden's actually a little bit more subdued. It's actually kind of interesting to see it. We'll see how that changes as he gets older because I have a feeling around his friends he's probably a little bit more like you two.
Right.
As you two have matured, you guys are very jovial. You're very inclusive, and you're very, very, and both of you are very funny.
Really
Now,
quick
So
witted.
true.
Caden is also very funny, but in a very different way. But again, when you listen to his friends and you see his friends, I think he shows up a little differently that we don't get to see. So it'll be a while when we see it. But I genuinely don't think there is a funniest, or you'd have to tell us what type of a scale to use because I think all three of you are very funny, and I don't see a variance between. There's no way. I don't have a way to have that distinction.
I will just say that you all get it from me. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I think I agree with Dad. I think you guys all have. I mean, it's really good to see you guys because I think with sense of humor and wit, you know, you have to be really intelligent to be that way, to be as quick as you guys are and to pull off stuff. So you guys are not only funny, but you're super smart and intelligent too.
Honestly, we just come from a really witty family, so I think props to all of us on that. And growing up in the household we have and being in this situation where as kids we would all break down and start crying all the time because we were constantly joking around and teasing and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
as kids, I'm sure we all had a point where we hated it, but now as an adult and especially maturing into my own skin especially and being in a point where I'm very, very comfortable with who I am and stuff like that, where when I was in my teenage angsty years, I would hate everything about myself pretty much.
Why? I just hate that. Makes me so sad. 'Cause look
Well,
at him.
it was just
Look at that beautiful boy.
it was a point where I wasn't comfortable at all. I don't I
Yeah.
wouldn't say I hated everything about myself, but I was in a very uncomfortable point all the time where I didn't want to be in the spotlight. I really wasn't wanting to be joked around with or anything like that.
Right.
And now being in a point where I'm comfortable enough to where I don't care what people think and stuff like that, and being able to be very open with everybody, including you guys, because I think I sheltered myself even from you guys at that point. I think me and Nasim especially have sprouted to a point where we are able to bounce off each other really well, and that's kind of what actually made this podcast an idea, is the fact that we think that we're kind of
We
the
think we're
best.
funny.
Exactly.
What do you want?
So coming up with
Yeah.
an idea of how to put out a product in which we can display how awesome we are.
Well, and kind of to touch on what
Uh.
Dad said about like sensitivity stuff, it is funny because I think like it's almost like the tables have turned a little bit. I remember like when we were younger, um, not that I think we all had sensitivity points, but to your point, Jordan, I think you were a little bit more trying to stay out of the spotlight. But I remember like even having a really hard time taking some of the jokes that people were throwing our way. And I just remember a conversation with Dad where we were talking about I was super upset because Uncle Iffy made fun of I was wearing boots with sweats and like this goofy outfit and like all of the teenagers and middle schoolers were wearing that. But I remember him telling me like, "Oh, did you get dressed in the dark? You must have half a brain if you walked out knowing you looked like that." And like I remember being
Yes!
so upset and like crying and just being
Oh.
really pissed. And I think we were visiting you guys, and I think you were really little because you guys were in Arizona, I
Yeah,
think, when
I
this
remember that.
happened. And
Does he still
I
say
remember-
stuff like that?
well,
What?
yeah, he still jokes like that.
I know. I'm talking to Inaya.
But-
Does he give you crap?
He does, but you can tell that he's like doing it from a good place.
Well, and so that's what I was gonna say is that Dad immediately, like one of the ways that I think I still pops in my head sometimes when I feel like I'm getting a little bit sensitive from stuff is like he was like, "Well, do you think he wanted to hurt your feelings?" And I was like, "Well, no."
Yeah.
He doesn't love you. Well, no. I think, so then why are you crying and why are you letting it be this, if you know that the intention was never to get you here. And
Mhm.
so I think that even like that type of stuff I think helped a lot with us kind of developing our sensitive humors and everything like
True.
that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we're almost at about an hour, so I think we'll call episode 1 a success.
Yay.
Everybody hang on. I'm going to pause the recording and restart it.
Oh.
So everybody who's watching
We're
right
just gonna
now,
keep
click on
going.
to episode 2.
Yes.